Hello and welcome back to the Trans Talk Hub podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa, alongside our co host, Braxton.
What's up, everybody?
And today we have a guest on the show, Naiah. Hi, Naiah.
Hey guys.
Naya, let's go, Naya.
We're so glad to have Naiah on. Naiah has a YouTube channel as well, almost 200, or not 200, 20,000 subscribers. So thank you for popping on the episode today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure meeting you, Braxton, for the first time.
Yes,
Me and Alyssa just formed our friendship since she just moved to Las Vegas, which has been really exciting. But yeah.
Absolutely. So today we're going to talk about like trans labels and language and different things like that. So I guess to kind of kick things off here, I guess maybe we can kind of talk about like how we feel about those certain things. So I guess either Brax, you can say your point, or Naya, since you're the guest, you can kind of kick it off if you would like. But where do y'all feel the current state is within the community on like language labels, that type of thing?
yeah, we'll go ladies first. What's up, Naya?
Okay. All right. Uh, Thanks, Braxton. What a gentleman. I love.
Of course.
So personally, for me, I'm a person that is likes to base everything off of truth and transparency and even like there's a difference in I'm going to give just the example of dating because for when it comes down to dating for a transgender individual or transsexual or whatever, like we don't even know what to use anymore, right? You're like, am I a transsexual, am I a transgender, am I a ts, am I a like what am I? So I guess that's why we're creating this video to try to see if we can all align on something. And I think for me, going into dating, I remember back when I used to have a penis, it was such an uncomfortable thing because I was already uncomfortable with my body. And to go into dating, like that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to date because I was just like, oh, like I have to sit here and explain to this guy that, like, okay, I'm transgender or whatever, or I'm a TS or whatever I would say. And then here comes the freaking questions like, do you have a penis? Do you have a dick? Did you cut it off? Do you have surgery? Are those real? Like all these questions, right? And it's just like, God damn, like, can we just get to know each other?
Yeah.
Because, like, maybe you might not even like who I am as a person. Why are you so worried about my body right now, right? Oh, yeah. So, based on that, I think that it's highly problematic of just using one, like, going on a date, let's say on a dating site. For example, I met my husband on Tinder, and being on Tinder, I could just put transgender, but again, same questions arise. He's probably wondering, does she have a dick? Does she have like what does she have? What does she not have? What does she like? And so here comes all of this again. And I think that as a community and as the world, really, I think if we all got in line to saying, okay, labels are okay. Labels are okay. And it's okay if you put me in a box. It's okay because for us to not go too deep into what you do in the bedroom or what you have downstairs, just for the ease of conversation, can we just say, I'm a transsexual female? If I say that to anyone, if I were to put it on a title of a dating site or something describes me and says Naiah Nikole, transgender or transsexual female, that right there should tell you that, okay, well, what is the transsexual? Well, according to me, and what it used to mean was someone who has surgery, any type of surgery that affirms in a sense. Like I know a lot of people don't like a lot of this kind of language, but again, for sake of conversation, you need language. Language is important, labels are important. And yeah, like for me, I'm a transsexual, which means that I've had surgeries or a surgery to cross me over that differentiates me from a drag queen, from a cross dresser, from a baby trans, if we like to call it, or whatever. So for me, I'm like, I'm a transsexual. I've already had surgery or some type of surgery, number one. But now I'm going to define what kind of surgery by telling you that I'm a female. Now, am I really a female? Fuck no. Like, I'm never going to be, oh my God, you guys are going to have to bleep me so much. Sorry. But so without having that deep conversation with someone and getting to know you, or even like, oh yeah, I would be interested in going on a date with this person because they're a transsexual female. I don't want to go out with somebody that's trans that still has a penis, for example. and nobody wants to get put in that spot to have that conversation. Because now that opens up the questions like, well, how big is it? And now you get into like fetishes and all this stuff. And you're like, I'm just trying to find a husband or wife here. Like, what? Like, why?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I had a very similar experience in meeting my wife. We met on Tinder. Anytime I was on a dating site, I was very straightforward about, I'm trans, like this is what's going on. I don't want anybody that's not interested in those types of things. Doesn't hurt my feelings if you're not, but why do either of us want to waste our time? But I think it's unfortunate because it does become this big pinnacle of who we are instead of like focusing on, yes, I am trans, but it is one of the things about me. It is not the overarching thing about me. There's so many other things I like to do. I like to make music. I'm super into like philosophy and psychology and all these other things. I love people. I love dogs. I like hiking. Like there's so many other things about me that could potentially mesh with another person that it becomes super unfortunate where the whole conversation now is revolving around my gender, my identity, the things I've done with my body, the things I haven't done with my body. It's just kind of unfortunate, and it makes you feel a little less human. At least in my experience it has, where it's like I'm not this like freak show, right? I'm just a person, but I think a lot of the label thing has gotten pretty like taboo almost in a sense because people are so focused on emotion. And while I think emotion is very important, I don't think that it should rule everything, right? We have to be able to pair these things with logic. And that's not even just in the trans realm. That's in any aspect of life, right? Things come up and there's going to be an emotion about it. But if your emotion is all I lose my job, for example, right? Sure, now I'm sad, I might be a little depressed, I'm stressed, I'm worried, I have a lot of fear. All of those things are valid, but if I don't pair that with the logic of, okay, how do I move forward? How do we get from point A to point B? How do I get another job so I can support my if I'm only focused on the emotional side, everything else goes to the wayside. It just gets that much worse. And now there's a huge emotional turmoil that I've dug this hole and I can't get out of. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in the community now where everybody is so emotionally driven that we have lost sight of other things that are just as important, if not more important. So, I would love to see us shift from being so afraid of labels and being afraid of being labeled something. Instead, just be proud of who you are. I loved what you'd said, Naya. Like, I am very proud of being a trans person. I have no, like, I'm not emotionally stunted by this. Now, in my early transition, maybe. And I think we see a lot of that too, right? There's a lot of people that are just now getting into this. There's just now this wide acceptance of trans people. So you're seeing a lot of people in early transition. And there is a lot of emotional, damage kind of that comes along with that. I just wish that these people would listen to the trans folks that have been doing this for a while and just like, dude, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not always going to be like this. If you just stay the course, build a relationship with yourself, learn how to love yourself, which is most important in any realm, truly, you will find comfort, and the rest of this isn't going to bother you as much. I don't care if somebody calls me a woman, doesn't matter. Logically speaking, I am, and I have accepted that, and that's fine. You can call me whatever you want. I know who I am, right? I'm
So I'm gonna cut
confident.
you off right there
Yeah, go for it.
because I disagree with you. I would not call you a woman in any type, shape, or form
I
of
appreciate
whatever.
that.
And it's not because you're trans or the way you look or any of this. Well, no, actually, yes, it is because you're trans. Because the thing is to me, and here goes with the labels. For me, there's a difference between a man and a woman, a male and a female.
Yes.
So for me, I am a woman. So for me, in society, I'm an accepted woman.
Hmm.
And I think that males can't be women because women is gender role. You present to what kind of, and again, that goes with little technical gender roles and like women typically when you say, oh, women are soft, women are gentle, women usually, like all these things, right? Like feminine and this is a woman. To me, like that I was like, what is a woman and whatever. Like to me, I'm like, all these attributes are womanly. Like if you want someone to open your door and treat you like a princess, that is a woman. Like that is woman features. So if I want the girl to open his door, like, okay, you want a little woman treatment,
Right.
again, labels, right? And I think that I know that there's a lot of creators out there and people will go on debate. They're like, "No, you cannot be a woman because you're not a female and blah, 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 and it's an adult group, like all that stuff." I'm sorry, but you can sit here and have an argument all you want online, but in person and in reality and in society, no one will ever come up to me and just be like, "Oh, no, that's a man." Maybe someone who's super jealous
Sure.
that actually knows that I'm trans.
All right.
So, that's the thing about who we are. And in society, I think that there needs to be an accepted thing that you're like, okay, if you're transgender and you do the change and you want to fit into that gender role of what it is to be a woman, then there's things that you have to do to fit into that role,
Mhm.
into that box. If you do not do the things necessary to fit in that box, I'm sorry, but you're going to be on this other box.
Correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, so I would never just woman, no. Female, yes. Me,
Right.
male, 100%. And I like the fact that you were touching on when we first start out transitioning, we try to move as far away from our sex because we want to be accepted. We want people to just see us as whether it's a man or whether it's a woman, whatever it is that we're transitioning into, and I think that if as a society we're like, okay, I think we can all accept that if you do everything necessary to fit into the box of what it is to be a woman or what it is to be a man, then you earn your title and we will accept you. And that goes with passing. So if you go and you go up, transition, come out at the end of the tunnel, like you said, Brax,
Yeah.
and now you pass, nobody's going to confuse you. Nobody's going to get your
Yeah.
label wrong. None of this stuff. But I think that as a society, a lot of people can agree and say, okay, yeah, if you look like a woman, you talk like a woman, you act womanly, and you don't have outbursts like a man and act like a man, try to fight like men do, like, and all this stuff. Like, okay, then yeah, like I can see a woman. I see women. You look soft, you act gentle, and you're a woman. Like you're acting womanly. Even when a man is a man and he's acting girly or womanly, it's these features, and I think that that's okay. And that's the only way we're going to reach a point of acceptance. That's it. It's you either have to fit into the list of things that you have to do to fit into this box or you don't. And I'm sorry, but try harder because
Correct. Yes.
my transition has taken a very, very long time. Tons
Hmm.
of things I've done. And I'm not where I am today because I was born with a silver spoon on my plate. Like I'm an immigrant. I didn't even have a green card or right to be in this country, anything until I was 22 years old.
Yeah.
So think about that. Like someone who can get a driver's license or a legitimate job at freaking McDonald's, that was me at 22. So here you have somebody that finally got the green card and finally could start living their life as a contributing member of society, in a way, right? And I had to deal with all of these other things like transitioning and passing and all this stuff. Also dealing with personal stuff, and that's what makes this and all these other things that I'm not just trans. I'm
Right.
also these other things. But again, labels, box it. I think we need to all I like the fact that all these things are being like retro taken back, and a lot of people are losing rights. I'm sorry, but I think people push the envelope goddamn far. And sorry. Now maybe it's time for us to hit that reset button and we're like, okay, about as the community of trans people accepting and everybody else, how do we all get on the same page? How do we all say, you know what? I get it. Trans people exist, but tap into society because you're a very small part of the population that lives life that affects others.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, our existence does affect other people. It affects other people because of the way that we act in public, dress in public, using public facilities, trying to join sports, trying to do all these other things, the way that
Yeah.
we want to present ourselves if we're teachers, nurses, all this stuff, right? Doctors, we're part of society. So we have to be integrated and we can't push who we are down people's throats unless we can all get on the same page to say, okay, how do we make that happen? And
Yep.
I think that's where, if you don't semi try to pass and try to act like a woman or try to act like a man or be a man, then maybe you just don't earn that title.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like inherently true. Like, I get into, a lot of debates, especially on TikTok about this type of thing. And people get, oh, passing's a bad word. And I'm like, I'm not saying it because I'm trying to be hateful to you. I'm saying it because I care. Right. And I want you to have the same ease that other people that you're fighting for, obviously. Right. Because you wouldn't be upset and you wouldn't be screaming and crying if you weren't upset about this thing. I want people to be able to have that ease of life. And we are part of a huge society. It is what it is. Like, there is very rarely in the outside world, outside of the internet, that I am ever referred to as she, as her, as ma'am, as any of that stuff. And it's because of the way that I show up. It's the way that I present myself, the way that I am to people. Like, even the ladies first thing, right? Like, I have taken that role very seriously. I always hold the door for a woman. I'm gonna open the car door. I'm gonna, I'm gonna be there to defend women, right? Like, you have to step into that role if that's the role that you want and you want to be viewed that way. Where are you wanting to be viewed that way? You already view yourself that way, right? But you're upset because society doesn't see you that way. Well, then do something about it. You can't just sit back and cry and be upset that, oh, this person didn't call. Well, you also have a responsibility in that. Do I think that that's ideal? No, but like, let's be realistic. We don't live in an ideal world. We just don't. So like, you can victimize and victimize and victimize yourself. You're just going to perpetuate your own misery. And that's sad. I don't want to see people continue to do that. It's nice being on this side of things where I have put in the effort to pass. I do it quite well. I don't have any issues. I just don't. It's not lost on me that some people are early in transition. It does take a lot of time, but that's like anything in life, You want to be a doctor, well, you got to go to school for years and years and study. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money. Does it suck? Absolutely. Is it worth it? Well, you things in life that are worth it, you're gonna have to work for. You're gonna have to fight for. There's gonna have to be some push and pull. There's gonna be some downward momentum. People tend to think that you've got point A, you've got point B, and it's a straight linear line all the way across. It's not. You're gonna have ups, you're gonna have downs. As long as you're continuing to move forward, you're gonna reach point B. Just keep moving forward. Stop allowing these things to pull you back and to hinder you, and quit letting your emotions get in the way of things and dictate everything that you do. It's just miserable.
I mean, we sound really shallow. I have to restore it on watching this. You're probably like, yeah, they it's feel this because you the way they do, and we probably
Right.
have money, and we can't all pass, and we can't have the bone structure that we have, and we can't all listen. If you don't know what I used to look like, I was a man. Go to my videos out there, and I was a real handsome man. And I'm gonna just say this, could cut this part out and just make it like exclusive for I don't know certain watchers, but I used to have a really nice penis, and I wish I could have kept it. I wish it was part of who I wanted to be. I
Well,
wish, because it was so nice, but it wasn't who I was. I wanted this life of who I am now, where I have, a vagina. And I wake up in the morning and I feel soft and feminine, and nothing's hanging out of my panties. And if I want to be nude, I'm nude, and I feel so comfortable. It's so beautiful. I'm one of the lucky ones. I am one of the lucky ones that had surgery and had zero complications and all of this stuff. Yes, I did get lucky, but I'm going to tell you something. That luck started with all of the research that I did to go to the doctor that I went to and do everything possible that was in my hands to do for things not to go bad. Now, I know Alyssa's situation is a little bit different, so maybe you can speak on yours. Yeah, but I I can see the point of view of somebody watching this and looking at us being like, well, it's easy for you to say. We weren't always these people and who we are where we are today. We had moments where we were going out and when we were baby trans and people would like, we didn't know if they didn't know if we were a man or a woman because we're such in the middle ground of things. And I'm sure there was I can remember because I had long hair like up to here, and it was like in the middle of me doing laser for my face, but I still had a little bit of stubble and I was going out, and my voice has always been like this. Like I come from a family of singers and musicians, and my voice just sits at this range. Can I make it a little bit higher? Like, of course I can, but this is like way too much. Like, I'm just going to talk the way that I do, So, but again, I did get lucky in some of the things. I get it, but in that time when I was transitioning, I remember that people thought I was a lesbian. I remember lesbians would hit on me when I would go to the club, because that's one of the greatest things to do, is to go to the gay club,
Mhm.
to feel accepted in some sort, and feel comfortable. Yeah, so like people thought I was a lesbian,
Hell yeah.
but you have this moment, you have this like thing, and I don't know. I do believe that there's terms. So for me, I think, I don't know if I made a video of this, but maybe I should. And this video, I want to get all of your guys' opinions about like the title. I like, so for example, there's that, like, have conversations with my husband. I always say like, yeah, like, so I met this new friend. Her name is Alyssa. She's moving from Las Vegas. She's post off. If like either say stop, or I can say, oh, she's also a transsexual female like me. And now it's like the same. That's an equal term to me. Post up, because he knows, you're F to M, which is all in the, that little linear thing. The title, again, a transsexual woman to me is someone who has breasts and has a penis. That's a transsexual woman to me. Yeah,
Right.
you still want, sure, because in the outwardly, like the way they present yourself, you're probably super beautiful, but you have a penis. Like, you cannot be any type of female unless you get the bottom surgery. That's what I believe. I know that people might not agree with this and might be upset about it, but it's like, I know a lot of people that have talked about not getting surgery because they're afraid of the outcome. And to
Mhm.
me, that was, for me, the outcome. If I end up with a little hole I cannot sex through and I could just pee out of, it'll beat how I see myself and how I feel about myself. So
Right.
that's why I did it. So if you're a transsexual woman that wants to keep your penis, then hey girl, you do you. Like, that's your life. Don't use the term female in the same term. Like, you're not a female in the same term that I am. Like, there has to be a separation of that. And are we still all part of the transgender community? We're all part of the transgender community, but in conversation, how do you differentiate? How do you get people to accept you in society? How do you even write laws to be able to be included in things when you can't say, well, a woman is anybody? No, like, and that's why now they're passing laws to say, no, if you're not a female, you can't use the restroom. If you're not a female, you can't join that sport. And it's so unfortunate, because maybe there might be someone who transitioned, or there might be, here's a better one. There might be female, well, they're not females, I guess, like their
The chromosome.
chromosomes, yeah, their chromosomes, they're males, but they're actual female genitalia and everything. And they exist, they're out there. They don't even know that this happened to them because they've never gone tested. So it's like, what do those laws do for these people? Are they being excluded? Because technically, so it's just like, how do we write the laws? How do we get acceptance? And I think that's the way to do it, is for us to all be like, okay, in society and conversation, we could all just have, without a big explanation, we could just be like, oh no, yeah, she's a transsexual woman. It's like, transsexual woman. Oh yeah, transsexual. So she has surgery and woman. Okay, so she must still have the penis. She doesn't have to tell me all that, but I know that's what it means.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hiding behind labels is kind of what's happening, right? Instead of people just accepting the truth of their own reality, their own situation, which I get can be hard, but we're just kind of hiding behind them, we're so afraid of like what other people are going to think. And honestly, if we would just have some more definitive understanding of what all of the different nuances within the trans community, we would have a better opportunity for there to be more widespread understanding and acceptance of who we are. That's the hard part. You had said earlier that like our existence does affect other people's existence, and a lot of that is happening right inside the trans community, right? You get these people that are a little too loud and proud and just like spewing nonsense, and so that affects people like us that we're just trying to live our lives. And it's not lost on me. I understand that these people, it's coming from somewhere, right? I love human beings before anything else. Like, I think that, all villains have an origin story kind of a thing. There's something that perpetuated this for this person. But when you don't open your eyes to see that, you can say all day that you're humanitarian and that you love people and this, that, and the other. But if you're not taking the time to recognize the nuance and the harm that you cause to other people by hiding behind these labels, by trying to change definitions, like the transsexual thing, that was always a thing. When I started my transition in 2014, that's what it meant. Everything had its definition. And over the last 11 years that I've been transitioning, everything is like slowly started to change. And well, that actually doesn't mean that. I'm like, you can tell me what Webster says all day. These people change that because they are afraid of hurting your feelings. I don't believe that these things are truly what this thing is. You can retype a definition and put it out to the world and say this is what it is. That doesn't necessarily make it true. We're just abiding by emotions. And again, emotions are important, but they can't dictate everything. So I'm just hoping that we can eventually like have these conversations where we're open with people, especially those that are causing the harm within the community, and meet them where they're at and slowly start to show them, like, one, it's okay to just be who you are, to accept your situation for what it is, and to move forward in that. But we have to like find a common ground to care about each other. What I see now when these debates happen is it gets really personal really quick. It gets really nasty. It gets really vile. It's a lot of personal attacks. It's, well, you're always going to be like Alyssa and I were talking about this before we had started recording. It's like there are people within the community that are other trans people that have focused solely on tearing other trans people down because they don't agree with them. I think a lot of it starts with those of us that can remain level-headed in these conversations and say, dude, I get it. I understand where you are. I understand because I was there at one point. And even though you can't see that now because I'm 11 years into this thing, let me help you. Let me help guide you. Let me save you from all of the turmoil that I had to go through to get to where I'm at now. I don't want people to have to do that, and a lot of it's just be a human and be kind and be loving to each other. And sometimes that's hard to do, but nobody's going to listen and open their eyes if you're constantly screaming at them and belittling them and making them feel like they're just the biggest piece of shit on the face of this planet. Like, people make mistakes. We're allowed to make mistakes, but we should use them as lessons and not make them habitual.
Yeah, for sure. I want to pop in here for a second because, I don't know if I guess y'all could tell me, right? Because y'all have a lot of experience in transition versus me, right? So like, but first let me say like what y'all both talked about in the aspect of if you're early in your transition, you should kind of listen to those who are 10 years in plus they've gone through things, right? They have that knowledge, they have that to bestow upon you, right? So I think a lot of the community, they love to like for example, like TikTok is horrible. That's not where you
Mm-hmm.
should get your opinions, because that is, I mean, let's be real, a lot of it is left leaning and very, I guess, woke, right? Like very far, way beyond. Like we talk about that all the time. But
Entertainment.
Yes.
honestly, yeah, it really is. But I like someone like me, right? I am early on. I am so grateful that I'm able to speak to like you, Brax, you, Naiah, and I'm able to like kind of gather like my opinions on things have changed while knowing both of you. Like I haven't even known Naiah that long, but even like hanging out with her and speaking to her and stuff like that, she's kind of changed my opinions on some things. Brax, you've changed my opinions on some things. So it's like
What are
in
these things? I want to know so the people know.
well,
What are some of the
we're
things?
we're talking about language, and like I think like these labels and things like that. I think while I haven't like completely disagreed with anything to start out, it's just I think for me, and I'm starting to realize that this is where I was coming from. It's like, well, I don't want to say this thing because it's not worth it because I know the backlash I'm going to get. Well, realistically, we can't think like that because as an overwhelming community, you have to look past like, oh, am I going to get backlash for this? We know where the base should be. It should be where we started, right? With the whole, we start, like Brax, you said, when you started 2014, it was transsexual. That's what it was, but it got changed. Well, it got changed because, like you said, a lot of people were just trying to like, oh, well, what's a label that can make this easily digestible for people and stuff like that. Well, as a community, we have to stop like allowing labels if that's the only purpose that they exist. And like Naiah, you talked about how, like having that distinction of like, well, you can be a transsexual woman if you've had surgery but you still have your penis or whatever, but you can't be a female because to be a female, and even then you can't be a female, but you can be a transsexual female. I think those things are important. But the thing is that the moment that you hop on like a TikTok live or something and you say that, the majority of the trans community is gonna do their best to tell you, oh, you're I don't know, what do they say now, transmedicalist or something? Like you have to
Sure,
have this
there's
to
all
reach
sorts
a
of
certain
stuff.
level or whatever it is. They're gonna attack the hell out of you because they
Let's have a conversation and make sense.
Hmm.
Period. Period.
Yep.
Like it can make sense. So you can say your feelings are your feelings, but what is the reality? And if you not realistically, we don't live fantasy land. Like we live on planet Earth where we are human beings and nobody's perfect, and it's okay. It's okay to accept that you're a male and you're a female. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to transition. It's okay to not be passing. It's okay to not want to pass. But we live in society where, realistically speaking, you can feel how you feel. But again, you do not do the things to fit into the box. Like you guys are talking about, like, you have to listen to other people who've done it. I don't want to listen to nobody. Like hearing this, I'm not listening to you, and I'm not listening to you, and I'm not listening to nobody. But I do want to know the rules of the land. Like, I want to know, what does it take for me to do this? Like, oh, to get a driving license, I have to actually know how to physically drive the car, and I can't use the backup camera when I take the test. Oh, I have to take a written test too. Oh, and a vision test. Like, bro, like this is the most. But what do you have to do with that? No, like, let's change the rules. Let's change the rules that you can be blind and drive a car. And it's like, so like we
Right.
cannot change the overall rules of the land and for everybody when it affects a very small population that are actually legally blind. And it's like, well, I don't want a legally blind person like driving a car. Like, I'm in my car with my daughter, and like, you're sitting here telling me that you get seizures when you fucking like you can crash into me and my daughter. That's not safe for us. Like, no, let's make a rule that this is not okay because it affects me and other people too. So it's like you can't change things that harm other people and really harm people. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think, for
Absolutely.
example, trans people using the restroom does not harm anybody. Anybody can fight and say, oh, rapes and all this stuff. I'm sorry, but that happens. And it's not going to happen because somebody is trans. It's going to happen because they're sick in the head. And that's the reason. They might happen to be trans or they might happen to be whatever, but it's not happening because you're trans. And because you put on a wig and went into the restroom, it's because you're sick.
Yeah. Well, and I think like, not to like derail and get into the bathroom topic, right? But the amount of assaults that have happened in a bathroom that are by actual transgender people is slim to none. It doesn't really happen that way. Now, do I think that there are, because we've blurred lines, because we've changed definitions, because we don't have any sort of like barrier on this is what it takes, do we have people taking advantage of the trans label and saying that they're trans? Potentially, yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's important that we do have labels, that we do abide by these things, that we do have rules, we have laws of the land, and we follow these things because I don't think that actual trans people are an issue in the bathroom. For the last at least 9 years, I've been using the men's bathroom. I have no issue. I go in, I do my business, I wash my hands like most people should. And if you don't, you're nasty. And then I
You're
leave.
probably the only man who's washing their hands in the public
Probably
restroom,
that's what's
guys.
giving me away. It's giving me away that I wash my hands.
You.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just like these things are actually important. And if y'all are so upset about people being upset about you using the bathroom, then let's start labeling things, right? Let's start using the rules. Let's start applying those. It's not that it's this big, bad, scary thing. It's actually going to help actual trans people as a whole for us to have these things. It gives people a basis to be able to understand us. Nobody is trying to go into the bathroom to harm you. And if anything, trans women are at more of a risk going into a men's bathroom than they are going into a women's bathroom. Like even like gay men, like we've gone to, we were really big into like the EDM scene and going clubbing and all that stuff. Dude, my wife and her best friend have been in the bathroom with gay men several times and they're like, "Oh, honey, I love your nails. You're so cute. You're so precious. Let's take a selfie." Like it's really not that big of a deal. I wish people would just leave the bathroom alone. Who gives a shit? Go and do your business, leave. Nobody cares.
But
No
it's
big deal.
important, and people are having these conversations because you can't separate and make laws that protect people. Again, like,
Yeah.
I don't want a man in the restroom. I don't want, like, I have a daughter. She's 7 months, and I'm raising this beautiful little girl who is innocent of the world. And the last thing that I want is some crazy trans person filming in the restroom while my daughter's in there, or
Mm-hmm.
some like, oh, like all these noises like inside of the women's restroom while my daughter's then gonna ask me questions like, what's going on? Like, what is that? You know what I'm saying? And I don't think that's healthy for my child to see. So why is it important? Because there's no rules or laws that we can pass to protect people, for people to kind of fall in line with society. And listen, there's a lot of bad things that have happened in society. There's been slavery, there's been genocide, there's been all this stuff. And at that time, a lot of this stuff was okay. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, we all want to live in this world, be happy, let live however we all want to live. But at the end of the day, we all affect each other. And how do we all get, how do we all live in peace in some way that we can protect ourselves from people who are really trying to cause harm to other people? Not because they're trans, not because of any of this, but because they're going to use trans people probably as their shield to say, oh, but
Yep. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
For me, like, I'm curious about something, because we're I think, like, let's just say back to like the label stuff and all of that. I think we kind of talked about like what our view is on that, but I guess I'm kind of curious because, like, I'm not so sure that I know, but I think amongst the, like, obviously it's going to take more than the three of us, right? But I'm just curious, like, what y'all feel will actually be needed for us to actually start to see these changes with language and stuff like that. Without, I mean, obviously a pushback is going to be expected, but I'm saying, what do you think we would actually have to do as a community to reel things back in, to hit that reset and to reestablish what trans is? Like, I'm curious what y'all's opinions are on that, and what do we do? Because, like, for me, like, getting on TikTok and holding debates and stuff, it's a lot of rage. That's not going to do anything. So it's like, well, if we're not able to pop on like a TikTok live or something like that and have discussions, which we can't, because a lot of people don't want to just have discussions, because, Brax, like you said, a lot of people react
Mhm.
emotionally rather than breaking things down using logic. A lot of people don't tend to do that, right? They use that emotional aspect. I'm just kind of curious for both of y'all, like, what do you think we have to do to start to see a change?
Yeah.
acceptance. You have to accept that you're transgender or transsexual or whatever label we're going to use for it. And I think that transgender, that whole thing, everything transgender is anything that's crossing over from your original sex to anything else. You can fall under this umbrella. And then that comes down to, have you had surgery? Are you doing it for sexual gratification? Are you using it for performance? Are you using it for, then that gets smaller into another label. And then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. But then now you can follow a trail, and now you can write laws. Now as a human being, as a young child or a young teenager or whatever, like, once you have understanding of who you want to be and what you want to be, and you're like, oh, firefighter, I want to be a firefighter. Or, oh, for me, I wanted to be a wife. That's what I wanted to be when I was a little boy. I wanted to be a wife and have kids. I don't know how it was going to work, but that's what I wanted out of my life. Now, if when I was that age, I knew that there was a box that I can start in, I'm like, oh, I'm a boy child, but I want to be a wife. What do I have to do to get there? How do I get there? And to have that path, it's, to be clear, I don't have to listen to people making videos like this. I don't have to listen to anyone, because it's been done. It's in the laws. Now we know. And this is why people fight so hard for their First Amendment rights and their gun rights and for everything, because we know what it is, and we can use it, and we can fight for it and say, this is my right.
Yep.
Now I'm a US citizen. I am so proud. So proud. And it's like, and I use it, and I'm like, I'm a U.S. citizen. When I cross over from Mexico to coming in, I show the immigration officer, my passport. I'm like, let me in, bitch. This is my home country, honey. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is my home. Let me in. And it feels good. But before I had the citizenship and I just had a green card, it never really truly felt like my home. I felt like I could get kicked out at any point in time. I didn't feel like I had true rights. But again, it took a step for me to go from being an illegal immigrant to being a U.S. citizen. There was steps, and USCIS, which is the United States immigration, like there's a path that they draw, and they say, okay, if you fit this box, then you go here. If you fit this box, you fit here. And if you fit this box, and there's a whole pathway that goes all the way to citizen. This doesn't exist for everybody. And this is why immigration is also a huge thing, which I'm not even going to get into that. But anyhow, that was my
Different video.
example. Yeah, that's a whole different video. But like, that's my thing. It's like, there's a step, and that's what it's going to take as a transsexual, transgender, and all of this stuff. In order for us to write laws for all of us to live in peace and be let be and all this stuff, there needs to be a place where we can start, we can see the end of it, and we can connect it. And it's not going to start by somebody who's transsexual saying, well, I have a penis and changed my birth certificate. I wanted to say female. I have a right. And it's like, so then how do you differentiate from born females to somebody who has a penis who wants to be also female? And how do you differentiate this? When you go to jail and they go to a woman goes to frisk you because you don't want to say nothing, and now your penis pops out, and you have now offended her. Now you have, like, this is not her job. Her job is to frisk down females. This is now a person is affected because of what you're doing. And now the system's going to be affected because now they got to transport you, and you should have said something. And it's like, it's a mess. So it's like, there has to be a way for us to, how do we include everyone to be able to have rights that they can own, truly own? And I think it starts with acceptance, saying like, yes, I'm a male, but I want to be a female on my birth certificate. What do I have to do? How do we write a law that says that I can do that? These are the steps. But if that's not created, and as a society and as a community, we can all get on the same page to say, no, yeah, you're right. In order to pass and look like this, you have to pass, and that's the way that you're going to get accepted. And it's, sorry, those are the rules of the land. And if you don't want to follow them, then you can live in your own world, but you cannot affect all of us that we agree, and that everybody else, even out in the world, internationally. We're talking like not just in the US, we can go international and say Dubai. It's like, we don't allow men who look feminine to cross over into our cities and whatever. We don't allow that here. It's against our laws or whatever. Okay, well, then maybe like, it's like, okay, but who is accepted? What about if you're a transsexual female?
Mm-hmm.
Can you be let in then? Because like, then there's no fucking way. Like, I can go now and they can nude me, and it's like, they're gonna have to take a, what do you call it, one of those things, a magnifying glass to go deep in there and look and be like, oh shit, like, you're a male, you know, or do a chromosome test to really know. But besides that, like, they're not gonna know. So I can go over there with no issues. But it's like, if somebody has changed all of their documents because they're using these labels, and there's no true requirements for all of this, and there's just a catch-all for everybody doing it, then how does that affect this person? They can put their lives in jeopardy by being so ignorant, say, oh, I'm just gonna go. I think this actually you know what, I'm actually thinking of a specific person who this happened to. What's her name? Gigi Gorgeous. And then she was like crying and all this stuff that they didn't let her in and all this stuff. And it's just like, I don't know the exact details of everything because I don't know her, and she only talked about it like some things, and obviously we only know what she said. We don't know the full truth. We don't know why, how, what, where, whatever, but we know she doesn't have a vagina. We know this for sure. We know this. So I'm like, maybe that was the problem.
Right. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think a lot of it, like, you asked how we move forward, how we make these changes and start creeping into this area of things. I think it starts with the acceptance, absolutely. And I think further from that, it is having these conversations in a way where we're meeting people where they're at, and we're able to open people's eyes. Like, I've mentioned a couple times, I work in addiction recovery. I work with people who are in the early stages of regaining life skills, learning how to navigate these things and just be a contributing member of society. Kind of similar to what we're talking about here, right? A lot of these people, if you meet them with aggressiveness or belittling them or condescending them, they don't listen, they run off, they relapse. It becomes a life or death kind of thing, you know? Not saying that that's exactly the same here, but something I've learned in working in this is that's just kind of a human trait. That's just kind of how humans operate. So if we really want to make a change, right? If I want this person to actually commit to staying sober, going out, building a life that they're happy with, that, you know, they can merge into society and be a part of society, I have to meet them where they're at. I have to show them a little bit of understanding, and then I can give them my opinion, because now it's not coming from a place of I'm going to point my finger at you and you're wrong and you're terrible and you know nothing and you're stupid. It's I've given you the opportunity to see that I get it. I understand where you're coming from. Can I give you some advice coming from a place of now I kind of know where you're at. I know your story. I'm just telling you this because I care. Right. Because nobody at face value is going to take your opinion as you give a shit about them, especially when we live in a world where nobody gives a shit, really. Right. Who fuck your feelings is a big thing that I hear a lot of the times. No one cares. But if we can present these things and like, I do care about you as a person, and I care about how this society moves forward, how our community moves forward, maybe people will actually start to listen, and it might not happen eventually, right? Or initially, but we can plant that seed. So hopefully as this person moves forward, something happens. They'll be like, oh yeah, I remember when I was talking to Braxton and he'd said, XYZ, right? And so now they know to apply it. Maybe it doesn't happen in the moment, but we want people to take these things and to actually like let them sit, right? Because if people are just screaming at you, and I know this from experience and being in debates and things, the second you start screaming at me and you're being nasty and you're being hateful and you're telling me that I'm stupid, I've clocked out. I'm not listening. I'm shut down. I don't give a shit. It's fuck you all the way. I don't care, right? But if I'm nice, right, and I can keep a level head and I can show you that I'm only saying these things because I care, there's more of a chance that that person is actually going to take what I'm saying seriously and understand that I'm not trying to belittle you. I care about you. I want you to have a happy life. The same way that I've been able to develop a happy life. I've had a second chance in my life, right? And I have all these wonderful, amazing things, and I've learned how to cope with stress, and I've learned how to just move forward and be resilient. I was not that way in early transition at all, dude. I was so lost. I was so scared all the time. Every little thing just like derailed everything. And I was so afraid of the world and afraid of people and afraid of going out and just being a person. It wasn't until I learned how to get past that that my life became really fulfilling. And I want other people to have that, because it's truly a blessing to get to live that way. So I think it's just meeting people where they're at and having these conversations. And, you know, Alyssa, you said that we know there's going to be backlash, right? There's backlash for everything in this world that we live in now. And it's unfortunate, but being prepared for that and being able to meet that backlash with a different energy instead of matching the energy of the backlash, I think it makes a huge difference, because people are like, oh, this person's not going to be skewed by me just screaming and yelling at them. They're actually listening. They're actually like they're chill. It's kind of becoming a safe space for people to be able to have these conversations, you know? And I'm hoping that we can provide more of that as we move forward, and just get people to open their eyes and live a life that you can be comfortable and just chill, you know?
Yeah. But totally agree with you with the whole like I didn't accept myself. I was very anti trans, very anti. I didn't want to be trans. I didn't want to be trans. You want to know why I didn't want to be trans? I didn't want to be trans because trans people are hated. Trans people are seen as disgusting. They're seen as people who no one wants to date.
Yep.
So I didn't want to be that. I'd rather be gay. And I
Right.
tried that. You know, I had my thing, like my whole transition. We all had episodes, and for me, even after I post-op, I was hiding it from everybody. I was like I remember the one guy, like I had to hug him, and I didn't say nothing. And I know people would be like, I can't believe you. Like, listen, it's a hookup, and he don't deserve to know nothing. He doesn't get to know, take me on a date, then it's a hookup. You
Right.
want some pussy? It's right here. You don't need to know anything else. Anyway, after we were done with everything, he was just like, "You trans." I was like, No, I was like, ew, I can't believe you said that. Like, do I look manly to you or something? And he's just like, no, you're just like, I don't know. He was just like, you were getting that wet. So like, that's just like, were you just not that turned on or something? Because for those of you that don't know, when you're post-op, no, it does not function like a
Right.
regular vagina that it lubricates itself or anything. So we need lube. And that's the one thing that he said that's the one thing that he was just like, that's weird. But yeah, I said no. I was in denial. And I was in denial for a very long time. Even after I had surgery and after I felt like that I fitted my skin, I was in denial. I was in denial because people aren't accepted. And it wasn't until I was like, you know what? I'm going to, in a sense, come out of the closet and tell everyone, yes, I'm trans and I don't give a fuck. And I did. I came out and I just told everyone, I don't care. And now I was just like, you can either accept me or not. I don't care. But now I was finally at a place where I was passing. I had a really good job. I felt beautiful and I didn't care. Now, it did after I came out, it affected me. There's a lot of girls who were friends with me are not friends with me anymore. They don't talk to me. They don't really invite me out anymore. And I'm just like, okay, I get it. Like, I get maybe you're worried about how other people are going to see you because you're hanging out with a trans girl, but that's the thing. It's like the only way that we're going to reach a place where we can get trans people to even accept themselves is as even at just as small community. If we can all just say, look, let's all protect each other. And how do we have conversations? How do we pass laws? How do we fight for our rights as a community? Like, how do we integrate into society and into the laws and everything? Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be, this, like, there's an LGBTQ plus all this stuff community because we're outside of the norm of the laws that are
Right.
written.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why we should all understand that whether you're gay, bi, straight, or not straight, like gay, bi, like trans, and everybody else, like we need to join as a community and stay like this and have conversations that can take us somewhere. And if I've said anything, like for anybody listening and watching this, and you're like, I can't believe this. And if you're a follower of mine and you're like, I'm going to follow her because of this. If you have questions and you want to have a conversation with me, I'm willing to have a conversation with you.
Yes. Yep.
Because maybe you can teach me something that I'm not seeing here.
Right.
Because I don't know everything. And I only know my experience and the things that I've been through. So if somebody can teach me something new and change my mind about how we can get this acceptance, then I'm willing to open my ears and shut my mouth.
Yeah. Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Yeah, I love both of y'all's points on that. I think y'all are both right. I think that we have to, first of all, I think we have to change the response versus because we know that the people who aren't going to agree with this, it's always going to be a heated pushback or whatever. But like you said, Brax, if we come from a different response level, if we come from a kind perspective and a calm, then they're like, wait a minute, they didn't follow me with the same reaction, so that kind of makes them change. And I know that this works because like I can give an example. Like it might not be like another trans person or whatever, but I remember very specifically, and this is just in general, I think anybody, whether you're trans or not, you could see how this could have effect. And I think Brex, I've told you this before, but I remember being, and you might have even been in there. I was hosting a TikTok live once. There was a guy who came in. He said, I just want to say I don't agree with anything that you're doing. I don't agree with any of it. He said, but I guess he kind of had that willing to like try to understand or hear my take.
Right.
But one thing, before I even say what I said, he told me, he said, before you go crazy on me or whatever, just know I do want to hear you out first. And I said, well, first of all, I'm not going to go crazy on you. What you've experienced is you've experienced the people who are acting out of emotion because you triggered something, you hit a nerve. You're not going to hit a nerve with me because I understand that like we have to have logical conversations. We have to hear each other out. And so I told him, I was like, look, this is where I come. This is my experience. This is whatever. I understand that you don't understand it. I don't even like, expect you to understand everything because only so much could you understand because you're not living the life that I live. But I can maybe give you some information where you might have a better understanding than you did prior to this. And so I
Mhm.
kind of went into things. And by the end, he was like, he's like, you might have actually kind of turned me around where I might actually go and hear something about a trans person and not automatically think negative of them. And
Mhm.
that's because you talk to me like a normal human being. That you didn't hear like, oh, I don't support you, and then immediately think, oh, you're transphobic, you know? And, so I think that's what people are used to, right? As soon as they see a disagreement, they think they're transphobic. I don't think that
Mhm.
way. And I imagine none of us here think that way. And that's because we've hit a point where we understand that. And, like I said earlier, I do give a lot of respect to the people who have been doing this longer, because even at like honestly at 2 years, I probably, most people would expect that I probably think like a lot of trans people, who are acting out of emotion. But it's because I did stop and I did listen to people who were further than me, and instead of, maybe for the first, I don't know, maybe 3 to 6 months, maybe I looked at somebody who was a trans woman and was very passable, and I maybe, initially viewed things through like a jealousy lens or whatever. But over time, I started to realize that, why am I doing this? Because for one, I don't know this person, but you know, I think a lot of people, they automatically assume that if they're much further along, they're not going to be a nice person to you. They're gonna whatever, and that's not true. I think it's first of all how you come into different scenarios, right?
Mhm.
If you have that understanding, it makes things so much easier, because now I know that, like, I can talk to like both of you who are way further than me in transition, and we can talk about things, and we can hit a baseline, and that's how we progress. So I think, especially like for me, I want to say to those people like, look, I'm 2 years in. I could have that wild view on things, and I could speak from emotion, but even at 2 years, I'm ready for things to change, because I think honestly, I'm seeing a big effect on how everything is. And because I am early on. So all of the viewpoints that these people have when they look at trans people is making people, don't get me wrong, it makes things tough for any trans person, but especially early trans people, because you have to, I feel like you have to, even though you shouldn't worry about what everyone thinks, it's very hard not to when you're very early on. And when you know that the world has this very negative take based off a lot of controversial trans figures,
Mhm.
it makes things tough. And like, I want to know that, like, when I am at like my fourth or fifth year, things are easier, you know, than it is right now, because not only am I early into transition, but I'm early into transition through a time frame that it's not very easy to be early on, is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, it's a lot of the reason that I just like absolutely adore you from the moment we first met. Like, you're just very level headed, and that's not something you typically see with people. I mean, and I'm not even just saying that based on people I see nowadays, like, even just based on myself. Like, I was not level headed, and the people that I was surrounded with were very quick to give in to fear mongering and all of that stuff. So then by proxy, I became that same way. I don't know. I am very excited to get to be here to experience your journey through this transition and as you move forward, because you are already just so far ahead of where I was at. So the next like 5, 10 years is going to be this like really beautiful metamorphosis to get to watch you go through. So I'm super excited to get to be a part of that. I truly am.
Well,
Do
thank you. I
you
appreciate that.
feel Do you feel I you just like triggered me, but do you feel like where are you in cuz okay, in my opinion, for me, I'm done. I'm not transitioning anymore. Like I'm not in transition. I'm not transitioning into maybe I'm transitioning as a human being into, becoming better and better all the time, but as far as like physical transition and maybe things that I'm working on as far as being trans, like to me, like I'm done. Like I'm not even though I'm trans, because by definition and by the box that I've created that I said, this is the box, and I got to the ultimate box at the top, kind of like become a US citizen. There's nothing more than that. Like you can't go higher than that. That's how I feel about my transition. Like I'm done. Right? Like, sure, do I want more surgeries? Yeah, I could use a little facelift here and there. I'm getting old. But like these are just narcissistic things that I want to do to myself, right? But like I'm done with my transition. Where are you, Brax? Like in your transition, do you feel like you're done with transition? Are you still living in transition? Like where are you at?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely still living in transition for sure. I haven't had any surgeries yet. Not that I don't want to, just I'm doing other things and have been providing for myself financially since I was, I don't know, 17, 18. there's just other things I want to accomplish first that, I've kind of just prioritized different things. Like right now I'm in school. I've got to pay for tuition and make all of that happen. I want to get my doctorate, which is a big goal and expensive goal, so it's like I would just rather do these things first. Like I've gotten to a point where I've gained more comfortability with myself, with my body. Am I necessarily like happy with it all the time? No. But I'm not beating myself up for it all the time because I have accepted that I'm trans and this is just kind of part of it, dude. It's part of the experience. It is what it is. You don't have to beat yourself up because but you still got a chest and you haven't had the surgeries you want yet. It doesn't mean they're not coming. I just have to work for those things and keep trudging forward and eventually it'll happen, when the time is right. So I would definitely say I'm still in transition for sure. Very excited to be at that top box, but it's not detrimental that I'm not yet.
And what about you, Alyssa? I know you got the ultimate box that I would consider the ultimate box, but where do you feel about you? Because this like I want to know this because this kind of like will give even like viewers like just where your opinion lays to where you actually
Right.
are physically, because
Right.
that labels and the laws and all that is who you are physically. Because, like, what if you don't fit the box that we're trying to pass a law for to get that acceptance? How do you feel about that? Like, do you feel that you're like, damn, I'm going to be excluded, but that's okay because, like, do you see what I'm saying? So, where are you in your transition, Alyssa?
Yeah, so like for me, I have talked this about certain aspects of this on prior episodes, but I kind of worked backwards in a way because I didn't start off getting laser hair removal. I didn't follow the typical like timeline as a lot of trans women would. For me, and I don't know if I went into this very in depth at all, but for me, there was a big reason why I decided to get bottom surgery first, and that was because I knew that before I even transitioned that that's what I wanted to have done because beforehand, I know people would be like, well, who were you attracted to? Well, I've always been attracted to men, but I never wanted to date men before transition because then I knew, well, I'm just going to be looked at as a gay man. Well, that doesn't fit with me. And I'm not here to say that, if anyone has gone through that path that I look at them a certain way because I don't. I'm only speaking for me. I didn't want to see myself that way. Like, even if people are like, well, technically you were still a gay man, you just didn't want to hold on to that, whatever. For me, when I started my transition, I knew, look, you get bottom surgery, you can get everything else as you progress, but once you have that, and if you were to get in like an intimate relation, like you wouldn't feel that way that you felt before you started or before you had it, because at that point I guess in my mind, I was like, well, I wouldn't be a gay man. You know what I mean? Like it would be different. So that's why I waited, and that's why I got that done first. Now I have started laser hair removal. I have another session on the 30th of this month. I'm excited about, but it's like so I have started doing some of these other things, but that's kind of where I started with, and that was kind of some of my reasoning. But I do want other things. For me, I have done voice training here and there. It's not where I want. That's why I'm kind of speaking still in kind of like my neutral voice because I'm not so comfortable where like I can hold it for like the length of a podcast, for example. Because I seen somebody's comment where they're like, "What about your voice? Like, what's up with that?" And it's like, well, I would rather be real and honest on this podcast and speak naturally than give you a what I would deem a fake voice for now, just to please everybody. Because for me, it's a lot of work. It's going to fade. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, so why wouldn't I speak to you from like a natural voice and just be real? Eventually, I would like to have vocal feminization surgery. I was actually going to have it in August, but I had to cancel it because I didn't have the funds at the time. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get it done, so I had to cancel it. But eventually, I would like to go and get that done because that, while you still have to do some sort of vocal training, it limits you from going to your deeper range. Like that's all it does. It just cuts off that deep range. And so like if you at least have the basis of what voice training is, it's easier to just naturally produce a more feminine like sound and then just dial it in, which I think to me would be a lot easier and I think it'd be more beneficial for me because then I'm not thinking about, oh, how am I in my control? Like I already know that I'm not gonna sound like I'm not gonna have a deep tone because they've removed that. So for me, I would like to have that done. I mean, other surgeries I think for me are like I'm not really even thinking about those because, like, for me, I feel like, if I lost weight or if I went and got Botox or if I went and got filler, I can replicate, like, because, a lot of people are like, well, like I feel like almost every trans woman's like, "Oh, I need FFS." That's not always true. I actually like seen something about what's called liquid FFS, which is where you go and you get Botox and you get filler and you get all that, and they can replicate that if you go to somebody who is skilled in what FFS would do. They can replicate that through Botox and filler and stuff like that. And for one, you're going to get out much cheaper, and you're still going to get roughly that same result. And plus, you know, I know that everyone's FFS result isn't like a Lily Tino, but it's like they apparently had FFS and you can't tell. Apparently, yeah, like Brax, air quotes. Apparently,
I think it
FFS.
was a
What
hairline surgery, to be honest, but
I think so, but it's like I have seen some people where I'm like, because they're like, oh my God, I had surgery, and I'm like, okay, like I can't see it, and I understand that some people want very subtle. Other people don't want subtle. They want you to see like they've had work done before and after, which is fine. To each their own, however you want to do it. But for me, I think I probably won't go through FFS. For one, I watched the whole surgery because I was an EMT, so I watched the whole surgery where they peel your face your face off, and I was like, now that I've seen that, I don't want to think like, oh yeah, they had to peel my face back.
Girl, getting a vagina out of your penis is worse than any of it.
I know, but it's like I did see that surgery beforehand too.
Getting a little peeled off and get sewn back on, that's like nothing, but getting like your penis shredded pretty much and then it all get pulled back together this crazy magical way, it's like that's crazy. And I saw that surgery, thank God, like so many times before I had surgery because I just want to understand. But I get you. But okay, so now that you talked about like where you're at and all these things that that you still want to do, I feel like we need to do a GoFundMe account. So everybody donate to we're gonna start one for Brax and we're gonna start one for Alyssa.
let's do it. Let's do it.
I mean, why not? But knowing that, right? How do you feel about making these labels and now attaching attributes where you're like, surgery is required for you to fit into this box, and this box will be what will go into the law book. So now when you say transsexual females and this are allowed to go into women's restroom, let's say it was used as law now because now it's become a socially accepted thing. How would you feel about now that you're like, oh shit, like for example, like Brax, you're like, I haven't had any surgeries. It like, well, somebody might be like, oh, you haven't had any surgeries? Okay, well, you're not a transsexual. You're just whatever, right? Like because you haven't had any surgeries. But then it's just like, how do you feel now knowing that like if we make these boxes, if we make these labels, you might not fit into it. The law might not protect you. So do you think that's okay?
Yeah, I mean, I do. And I think a lot of it is just like I've gotten to this point in my life where like, okay, maybe an early transition, probably not. But where I'm at now, like I have made a decision to prioritize certain things. And I feel like if that was the case, right, and these laws are saying that, well, you have to fit XYZ, then I still have the choice to prioritize differently in that situation also. So if that was the case, I would prioritize my surgeries before that. I don't necessarily have to do that right now. So I have prioritized, my education and building
Which
these
I
other
love,
things.
by the way. Love it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Ah,
One of these days, one of these days. But yeah, I just think that you still have a choice to prioritize things differently, and if it's truly important to you, then that's the route you go. I mean, I don't really like, especially like around the bathroom thing, right? I don't really use the bathroom in public that often, anyways. I don't know. I've just
it's
always been weird
pretty.
about. Yeah, they're gross. So unless I'm on a road trip, I really just don't do that. Even at work, I really try not to. We got a nice private bathroom upstairs. I use that and that's about it. And even then, I hate doing that. Like I'm a potty at home kind of guy. But I just don't care. Like I think that I've gotten to this point where I think there are things that are very important to occupy my mental space, and there are things that it's like it can go either way. I'm just flexible with a lot of things. I still think that the labeling is important, and I don't think that the world revolves around me necessarily. I think it's about what's, for the greater good of the whole, not just one. And so if that was to affect me, cool. But if that thing is going to make it easier for the community as a whole, I think that that's far more important than how Braxton feels in one singular moment.
And for our trans president.
Let's go.
Yeah. I want to jump in really quickly because this reminded me of an episode we did prior, and I think that relates to what we're talking to. So I'm going to pull that in a little bit. And what that is like, I guess we've been talking about these labels, and like Naiah, you asked Brax like how he would feel if these changes were made. Well, first off, I remember Brax, you and we talked about like we went over what's the organization? I forget right now, but it's like the one organization, WPATH. So I
Yeah.
remember we
Yep.
had an episode where we talked about WPATH. We kind of exposed some of their not so great ways. But what I really want to kind of pull from now is like back in, I think it was 2011. That's where there we didn't have it wasn't like the same consent model we have now. Like now it's like informed consent. Back then it was like, well, you had to follow all these steps. Well, I remember like seeing like some Reddit stuff before where people were like, well, it kind of sucks that this is a process. But there was also those people, and I think I don't remember if it was you, Brax, or somebody else that I heard it, but somebody made a very important thing that I want to kind of speak to as well. And it's regardless of what the process is, if it's really meant for you, you're going to go through with it regardless. Like for example, like I remember there, I think we did talk about this because we talked about how back in the early 2000s or 20s, it was not super easy to go and get on hormones or whatever it may be. But if you really wanted it, and if that was for you, then you went through whatever that process was. So I think people need to understand that, like, even if we change some things, it is for the betterment of the community, and you have to put your own views aside because we might have to go back to stuff like that, right, where we put more requirements on certain things, because then that, for one, lowers that chance that somebody is not fitting it, because that process is harder. Then I think more people who are serious about it are really gonna continue that process. So I think even like with the law kind of thing, I think that if we change certain things, the ones who don't like it or whatever, then they're gonna have to change, because they won't be allowed to, you know what I mean? Like, they're gonna have to be forced into this. And I think that that's kind of where we need to be, kind of like putting the restrictions on getting hormones or surgeries or bathroom access or whatever. I'm actually a fan of that. I think that, I said it before that I was a fan of it, but I think in relation to law changes, I think that's also going to be important, is seeing certain requirements to then see these be put forth.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Welcome back, Nat.
Thank you. I know. I don't know what's going on. I'm supposed to have fiber, and
Who
it's
knows?
5 p.m. Everybody got home and is using the
Correct.
internet.
Yeah. Chronically
It's
online.
the left trying to cancel me before this episode comes out.
I know they tried to do it twice. Look at them.
I know. They're vicious today.
So I'm sorry I missed some of the things you were talking about, but I think I got the end of it, which is that you would be okay with fitting into certain requirements that would allow for you to be included into whatever. Which, I mean, I think there has to be. I think, and I would really, for me, I'm so curious to see how people are going to respond to this. I would like to start the conversation, and I think that's what we're trying to do. And I want to see as much outpouring of people, whether you're outraged or maybe you're positively impressed, and you're like, you know what, that makes sense. I agree with that, because as we all get into this, the change is going to happen because we create it. And as fact is, as a community, we cannot all get on the same page and protect ourselves from the majority of society, then we can't all get together and fight for our rights. We just can't. And then there will always just be male and female, and those will be the definitions that allow you to go into a space or not go into a space, or be accounted for or not be accounted for. And I think that's unfair. It's unfair because trans people, we exist. Just because we're male, or just because we're female, or just because we're whatever, like, that shouldn't define. Your sex shouldn't just define. It has more to do with that. Like if you lose an arm, if you lose your penis, like it should matter. It should matter, you know? Like if you're missing an arm, you can't get a job where you have to carry 50-pound boxes with both hands. You know, you this they should have the right to not give you a job because you're gonna you can't do the job, you know. I'm sorry, but it's just we have to all get on a path to try to fight, and we all need to move the needle towards a positive thing where it cannot get like removed, because right now a lot of people are moving out of Texas. I know one right here that moved out of Texas because the rights, and you know, and a lot of the stuff that's going on. And how do you fight for your rights when you don't know where to begin and what to fight for? Like what are
Yeah.
you fighting for?
Amen.
So
Yeah, I agree.
Well, yeah, I think we all had some really good points here. Naiah, thank you so much for coming up on this episode. I think we had a really amazing episode, over an hour of content. So love that, and hopefully everyone enjoyed it. Definitely feel free to leave a comment if anything spoke to you. If you had a disagreement, definitely feel free to leave it. We'll all kind of chime in there, and we can definitely talk. Naya, thank you so much for coming on. Brax, thanks for always, being on the
Always.
podcast with me as always. But yeah, hopefully everyone enjoyed, and of course, stay tuned every week. We plan to keep these episodes coming. But yeah,